Hey, welcome back to the S.O.S podcast brought to you by the Who You Know Network. We are proud members of the Parade Deck community. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the Vet S.O.S Lifeline. Today, we are here with the one and only Marisol Maloney. Can't wait to get into this conversation. She's been doing some great things within our community for a long time. This is going to be great to talk about, especially myself being an Intel professional for my entire career. It's always interesting to hear what Marisol has to say here. I'm joined once again by Keith Cassant. How you doing today, Keith?
Living the dream, John. It's great to be here. Happy to be filling in for Eric. It's an honor as always.
Outstanding. We're glad you are here with us. So let's jump right into it. Marisol Maloney is a Navy veteran with an eclectic career path. She started out as an enlisted airman, then became a commissioned nurse corps officer, and later transferred into the intelligence community. Today, she runs a consulting business in which she writes resumes for transitioning service members and coaches them through their transition and job search. Marisol, so glad you're here with us today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here with you guys today. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Outstanding. So let's start with your transition story. When you decided to get out of the military, what did that look like? How'd that go?
Oh, ball of emotions. I was excited. I was nervous. Uh, I was hoping that I was marketable because, like most transitioning service members, we don't know what we don't know when we're getting out. And even though I was in the intelligence community, I had a bunch of other skills like the nursing background, the logistics background. And before I retired, I was a speechwriter for a four-star admiral. So I had all these different roles I could seek out next. So for me, it was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. People asked me, "Are you going to go back to nursing?" I was like, "No, I don't think so." Or speech writing, maybe. I don't know. I really didn't know what I wanted to do next. So I decided to take a year off to decompress and figure out what I wanted to do. And in the meantime, I worked on my project management certification and just worked on that. I passed it on the first try. I did it through Onward to Opportunity, which is a great program. I highly recommend it, by the way. And it's also open to male spouses and reservists. So that's how I started out my transition. And also when I transitioned, COVID hit. So a month after I got out, everything shut down because I retired out of Hawaii. So
Uh,
I had to, yeah, all the
I can
daycares were shut down. So I had to really kind of force to take a knee for a year because I had my kids and being dual military. My husband was deployed. So yeah.
So I got to ask, the military is already really good at making us jacks of all trades, but you really, like, you were a master of several in addition to being a jack of all trades. So, I mean, with so many different directions you could go in, like, what did you do? How did you find where you ended up wanting to go? Like, how did you determine that?
I decided, okay, I'm going to start applying now. I have my PMP. So I was looking for project management type of roles or intelligence planning, since that was the last job I had in the military. Well, besides the speech writing gig, but I wanted to do something in Intel with Intel planning or project management. So about a week after I got my PMP certification, I started applying to jobs, and I was very strategic. I didn't apply to hundreds of jobs. I just applied to maybe 3 or 4 per week, and, I was getting interviews, and then shortly after, I got 2 job offers in the same week, and I actually took both jobs. One was full-time as a intelligence planner with Firebird, and then another one was, for Intel Consulting with Sortech as a contractor, so part-time. So I had to talk to both to make sure they were okay with me doing both. Because being military, I'm like, yeah, challenge accepted. I was just excited that I got 2 job offers and they're both things I wanted to do. So I coordinated with both and got the blessings from both organizations. The part-time was just that part-time, no more than 10 hours a week. They just wanted someone with my background, someone that knew how to brief admirals and write intel products. And so it was for training exercise that they were doing at the time. And I found that exciting. So they found me actually. They found me on LinkedIn. I had just started being active on LinkedIn. I had like less than 50 connections because, like most secret squirrels, I was avoiding social media for the longest time because I was worried
yes.
that, the Chinese, the Russian government, they're going to hack into my profile. It's like, okay, well, now if they do, there's nothing on, there's nothing classified. So we're good. I keep it professional. I talk about just job search stuff. So the full-time job I had was with recruiting. And I did that for 6 months, and I was doing great. It was at, Special Operations Command Pacific in Hawaii, and I just love supporting SOF. It was great. But then being, a military spouse, my husband got orders to move to San Diego. So I had to quit that job because it was on site. And I was just kind of heartbroken because I was enjoying that role. I was enjoying working with my team. They're also a group of veterans. And I was also working with active duty as well, active
Nice.
duty special operations forces guys. And I loved it. And having to leave that just made me so sad. So I had to break the news to my boss. And it sucked because they had just given me a bonus because I was doing so well within the first 6 months that they gave me a bonus for doing well. And I'm like, thanks for the money, but I got to go now. And then when I PCS with my husband, after like a month or two, they reached out to me. They said, "Hey, we have this new role. Um, it's for recruiting, and it's on the East Coast, but due to COVID, we're gonna try something new. We're gonna try to make it a remote role. Would you be interested? Because you have the Intel background, you've worked with the government clients, you know what they want, and you're a people person. So what do you say?" And again, I was like, you know what? Challenge accepted. Let me try that. And I was still consulting part time for the other organization too, but that was a short contract. It was only like a 10 or 12-month contract. So I said, okay, sure. And in the process, I learned that a lot of transitioning intel analysts and listed officers, didn't matter the rank, their resumes were just terrible. So I was reading through them and they weren't hitting the highlights. They weren't showing how they met the requirements, the job description. They weren't listing some of the databases that were listed in the job description. A lot of databases that we use, like TAC, Analyst Notebook, Palantir. And you don't have to say how you use them, just list them and say, hey, I'm familiar with these concepts, these tools, but I would still reach out to them because being military myself, being intel, I knew they knew stuff. So I reached out to them like, "Hey, um, have you done this? Have you done that?" And it was almost always yes, yes, I've done this. And I would ask them, "Well, why isn't it on your resume?" And they said, "Oh, I wasn't sure what I could put on there." And a lot of made the mistake of just listing their previous military responsibilities. And I heard this a lot from my candidates. They say, "You are the first recruiter to call me." Like I've applied to 200, 300, 500 intel jobs and no one's calling me. And I said, "Well, it's because your resume doesn't show that you're an intel analyst. It's not showing that you know how to do that thing they're asking you to do." And a lot of the recruiters that are looking at your resume probably don't have the military background and definitely don't have the intel background, which I had both. I had the military and the intel, so I could read between the lines. And so when I would see a resume that said 20 years of it being an intel analyst, I'm like, okay, I know they know stuff, but for some reason it's not in the resume. So I would help them revamp their resumes. I would just write them for them. Recruiters don't do that. That's just an extra service I was providing because I really wanted them to get the job. And for me, I get paid the same whether they get the job or not. For me, it was just more of a personal pride helping someone achieve a goal, trying to help out my fellow veterans because I understand the transition can be very stressful for many. So I started doing that and they were getting the interviews and then I would prep them, do interview preparations with them and they were getting the job offers.
Yep.
And so then I started doing that for free for other people. I did that for about a year before I started charging. And it was that imposter syndrome. I thought, oh, nobody's gonna want to buy my crappy services. But I already had experience getting people the interview because that's what the purpose of the resume is to get you an interview. To get you a ticket to the dance. Once
Yep.
you get to that interview or that dance, that is your job to dance your butt off and tell the hiring manager why you're the one. So resumes don't get you the jobs. You get the job. But the resume will open up the door and get you that interview if it's written well and you articulate what you're trying to do and make sure you meet the requirements. So for me, it's really easy to translate military skills and read a job description, especially now that I'm a recruiter, I have that experience. So I understand what recruiters are looking for and what hiring managers are looking for because I have sat in on those interview panels.
That's an amazing story, and it's even more fascinating to me that you got a call, for one of those jobs early, where you're just getting on to LinkedIn and things like that, and people reaching. Because I've gotten a couple calls, and most of it's just BS that I get called for anyway. But that part impresses me. But before we get into your consulting service, I want to hear, as a military spouse and someone who has already transitioned, how are you preparing your spouse for their transition?
I think I've made him a little cocky now because he's like, I see you, I see how you transition, you did it right, and blah blah blah. So I guess I made my transition look easy. So, and he also hears me talking to transitioning veterans all the time, and he's watched some of my podcasts that I've done in the past as a guest speaker, and so he's taking notes, and he also hears me saying the same things over and over and over, which I never get tired of it because I know every day there's a new service member transitioning. Every day there's someone new on LinkedIn, and the questions are the same, they're just different players, and I have the patience to explain the things over and over again, which he's like, how do you do that? I'm like, well, you're learning, aren't you? From me repeating myself, saying the same things over and over again. Prepare early, prepare often, create a transition binder, start reading job descriptions and see if you meet those requirements, start networking, start reaching out, get a LinkedIn account. um, yeah, all those things that I did, that I preach about, I walked the walk and it worked for me. And it doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody because obviously it depends on your personality. Like, I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not, but I had to put myself out there. And that's, I think, very scary for people, especially those of us that have clearances. It's
Yeah.
scary to put yourself on social media, but once you get used to it and you learn how to navigate it, it gets really easy. So LinkedIn is like, whatevs. It's easy for me to navigate it now. And I think the reason I started getting contacted by recruiters because I had a fully optimized profile. I filled out all my information, nothing classified. It just showed that I had Intel experience. And I taught myself how to read job descriptions, and I did a lot of research, read articles, watch YouTube. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of noise. Some of it is garbage and some of it is legit. So I had to piece together what worked and what didn't. And once I cracked the formula for like how to write a resume, that's when I started getting the calls. And when recruiters reach out to me on LinkedIn, they'd say, hey, I like your background. Can you send me your resume? And I would say, well, before I send you my resume, can you send me the job description and more information? So then they would send me the job description and I will quickly tailor it to that job description and send it off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. And yeah, if nothing else, your spouse should have like a perfect resume, right? I mean, so
I hope
um,
so.
that's just fantastic. Oh man, what do you think, Keith?
I love what I'm hearing. And this is speaking to my heart because I do a lot of the very similar things in my 9 to 5 job just for a federal agency. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's so much truth being spoken right now. It's just the importance of telling that resume, and speaking the language. And yeah, it's amazing stuff. And I totally get it. I every day I'm saying the same exact things to people, and I don't ever get tired of it. My wife jokes that, yeah, I mean, she's got a great job. She doesn't want to leave, but I mean, she's like, if I ever need to leave my job, I'm good because she knows exactly what needs to be done. Yeah, no, this is amazing stuff. And so I'm just kind of curious, like you mentioned, you basically coached yourself, it sounds like, on how to craft a strong, impactful resume. So, and there's a lot of noise out there. And I tell people there's no the way to write a resume, right? There's a million different A ways. Everybody's got their own tastes and opinions. I like to say resumes are like music. Everybody's got their own tastes and preferences, and there's nothing more annoying than somebody forcing you to listen to a song that you can't stand, right? So how did you come up with your formula? Because most people get coached into that, and it sounds like you did a lot of your self research, which I find very intriguing. Like, how did you knock out the noise and what didn't work and figure out like the good formula of what did?
Well, my very first resume was hot garbage because I was listening to the noise. I did write my resume and put everything on one page. So I was trying to put everything on there. My nursing background, my Intel background, and it didn't really highlight my strong skills. So it was just like, oh, experience, Navy veteran. People usually don't care that you're a veteran or transition service, but they want to know I'm a project management professional. I'm an intelligence professional, an active top secret clearance, and this is what I can do. So when I went to my first job fair, I was still on active duty. It was like a week after I got my retirement orders. I was being proactive and I thought I'd go to a job fair. but that was being held on base. So when I was handing people my resumes, after I gave my 30-second elevator pitch, which I also researched how to do it, they were impressed. They're like, "Oh, okay, great. Tell me more. Do you have a resume?" I'm like, "Sure, here you go." And their face would be like, they're so polite to, they never say this is hot garbage, but their face said this is hot garbage. And I was like, oh, I need to work on that. So I did more research, and I started playing around on LinkedIn. I would see people posting their resumes, and some got traction, some were like, what is this? So I thought, I like how this resume is written. So I took part of that, what I had seen, and then just made it my own and made it flow better. So, and then I started adding to it. So instead of just listing the experience section, I added a summary section, and then I added my top skills and then my technical skills. And then I dove into um, the experience section. And then I only went back like 10 years, and I made it 2 pages. And I started reading job descriptions and tailoring it to those types of jobs. I would see the common keywords. So for Intel jobs, you'll see must have experience with Palantir, Analyst Notebook, all source analysis, briefing. And I had all those skills. So I started putting those as top skills. And for my technical skills, I listed some of the databases that I used that were in the job description. So everything was still unclassified. So I never disclosed anything classified. I never talked about secret projects or anything like that. I just focused on the skill. And that's also getting me phone calls from recruiters.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
That's the Intel piece of it is just, it's definitely interesting, because I was the same boat you were. I didn't 20 years Intel. I didn't touch social media hardly at all. I think I had a LinkedIn account for a year or two before I actually started doing anything with it. And it's just, one of those things where, not only, how all the silly things and UCMJ that comes from what people post on social media, I just didn't want any part of it being Intel. But yeah, finding those keywords and everything, absolutely spot on. Let's jump into the consulting now, the Secret Squirrel Consulting. So you kind of told us how you got there, right? But let's sort of run through the organization. What kinds of things are you offering? Is it Secret Squirrel immediately tells me, it's Intel based or related at least. So are you only focused on Intel professionals? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with it.
That was my original thought process, but then I was getting sought out by non-Intel folks. So, but they'll have clearances. Pretty much all of my clients have clearance, whether it's a secret or top secret, anywhere from enlisted to flag officers have reached out to me, and I've helped them anywhere from entry level to mid level to executive level roles to write their resumes, because the concept is the same. Translate your skills, tailor it to the job description. So the way I work with them is I always ask them to send me at least 3 job descriptions of roles they want to seek out next. And then I do a deep dive. I do like 1 hour or 2 hours, depends on like what package they pick. So I work with them and I ask them questions about, okay, did you do this? Did you do that in the military? And they'll say yes. I'm like, okay, great. We need to put that on your resume. And if they say no, and if a lot of them are no's, then I'll just flat out tell them, I don't think you're qualified for this role. You want to look at something more within your scope of practice. And so far, everybody's been like, wow, okay, thank you. So I try to guide them to other roles that they could potentially do as well. But for the most part, a lot of the people that come to me, they have the skills for the jobs they're seeking next. The problem they have is translating the military portion of it. But yeah, I work
And
with everybody, new grads. I've had I had a massage therapist reach out to me like, hey, I'm trying to get new massage jobs. I'm like, okay. And then those are really easy for me to do. It's like the mid-level to executive that take longer to do, because I do a lot of research. I don't just write the resume. Like, I'm researching what it is they want to seek out next and try to tailor
yeah,
and tell everybody's individual story. But everything starts with, their contact information on the resume, summary section, top skills, technical skills, experience, and then education. And then I go from there. So some people might need a careers highlights that I put on there. For example, if they've done something that was like 10 years ago, but they want to go back into that, then I do a careers highlight section for them. If they have any links to maybe podcasts that they've done or publications they've written, then I'll add that to the resume. So I do like the holistic individual approach when I talk to my clients and get to know them better. And I love it. I love learning about other people's backgrounds. And a lot of people have an eclectic background too. They were like party enlisted, they did one job, they did another job, and then maybe they were commissioned. And so like me, they had so many different skill sets and then they don't know what to do with that information. So I try to help them like narrow their search. So if they want to do project management and HR and say Intel, that's fine, but I let them know that they need 3 separate resumes if
Mm,
possible. And your background will never change. Your skills are your skills, but it's how you sell yourself for
Yep.
each role. So for example, I have Intel, I have nursing, I have logistics, but I'm not going to talk about my nursing stuff if I'm applying to Intel roles, but I may talk about my leadership experience within nursing or triaging or prioritizing or critical thinking. So I
Makes
may pull
sense.
out those bullets. Same thing if I were to do logistics, I would talk about all the projects I handled and all that good stuff.
and yeah, and you're hitting on something that I love the topic of, which is the soul searching, right? In the Army, we call it tightening your shot group, right? When you're zeroing your weapon and you're all over the target. And so I gotta believe you've run into this. I know I have. I'm sure even Sean had, like, sir, and I was absolutely one of them. I was all over the map too. Like, I came out, I was looking at jobs in like coaching and consulting. I was looking at jobs in security, like physical security. I was looking at jobs in teaching, and again, all over the map. But and I've had, veterans come in and come to me, and I asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, I don't know, I just want a job. And it's like, okay, we need to have a deeper conversation on that. So I'm just curious, like, what is kind of the approach that you take with these transitioning service members, especially that probably could do anything, right? They could really do just about anything they put their mind to, but they just don't have a tightened shot group. So how do you help them with that?
I explain how the corporate world works. I bring it back to the military. The military, we do everything OJT. Like for the speech writing gig, I basically got voluntold, but I still had to compete for this role. And I had to provide a writing sample and I beat out like 30 other people. Some of them were higher ranking than me. And then it's just different, right? You do OJT all the time in the military. And so a lot of us think, oh, we can just OJT our way into a civilian job. So I try to explain how that's different, because even in the military, when you get fired from a job, you may just get put in a different position, but you're still getting paid, you're still getting your benefits. In the real world, when you get fired, you get cut off. So you need to come correct. You need to figure out what certifications you need because I have a lot of people tell me, I want to be a project manager. Okay, cool. What projects have you done? And so we talk about that. Do you have the certification? A lot of people have never heard of the PMP certification. So then I talk to them about that stuff and I talk about other free resources they can reach out for, or like if they want to do cyber, I let them know it is hard to break into cyber as a newbie. If you have the background already, it's great. You're gonna shouldn't have too many issues getting those roles. But I try to explain to them that they need to do a deep dive of what's required for the roles they're seeking next, or they think they want to seek out next, because um, you can't just go into cyber and you did like infantry or something else and then you have no certifications, no training, no degrees. You're going to struggle. So I do bring a little bit of reality to them, and not to scare them, but I just want to manage expectations and bring that awareness that you can't just OGT your way into new roles. You really do have to show receipts of what you know.
I don't think
I,
scaring is necessarily I would say the right term. I think, something there has to be truth, right? And Keith's one of those truth bomb guys that, you need to help them manage their own expectations, because sometimes, if you were a certain rank getting out, does that equate to a certain salary range? Does that, do you, just because you were a veteran, does that mean that you qualify to do this? No, not necessarily. There's a lot of checks and balances you got to go through. And I mean, cyber is, like Keith will tell you that there's quite a bit there. So
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
I
a
operate
lot.
in the cyberspace, and yeah, I mean, I get veterans all the time. Hey, Keith, I got my Security Plus certification. What? Give me a job. Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that. So yeah, but I mean, and with anywhere in the real world though too, it's just there's always that expectation. People I get asked all the time, like, what's more important, certifications, education, or train or experience?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. What do you have
Yes.
time for? What do you have time for? They're all important. Some of them you can do quicker than others, So, and I encourage folks always go back and get whatever you can get now, like a certification, but then immediately start working on those other things, those other elements, because yeah, they're all important. Yeah, no, that's amazing insight. Yeah, and you're speaking my language, so I could talk to you all day about this kind of stuff.
We actually had
Okay.
have an episode with Gunner talking about how he made that transition to cyber. He was in the band as in the military, and he
Army
made a
musician. Yep.
successful transition. But he walked us through how he did it and the different things he had to do to make that transition. And that was just absolutely an amazing journey. And hopefully that'll help some people manage expectations and realize the work you got to put into it.
Yeah.
Exactly. The work you got to put into it. Like for the last 6 months of active duty, I worked on my transition every day. I was going to medical, I had a ton of medical appointments, making sure my medical record was squared away, making sure my service record was squared away. Start working on my resume, started researching jobs I wanted to do next, started researching programs. And this before I had LinkedIn. So I was doing all this research on my own. So I really did transition alone. That's always tell people, don't transition alone, don't reinvent the wheel. But I think by me doing everything on my own, it helped me be more resilient and just yeah, I had to learn the hard way, but I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I share what I learned along the way with others. Because in the military, all about lessons learned, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Those SOPs.
Those
Uh,
SOPs, yeah. So I share, mistakes that I may have made, but
yep.
at the end, it worked out. And so I think that's why people think I make the transition look easy, but I really did work at it. And I also had the same emotions most people have. Like, what if nobody wants to hire me? What if I'm not good enough? So I did have those fears. And then it's just that imposter syndrome that gets us all. And
Yeah.
so that's something that I work with a lot of my clients. I tell them like, what you have right now is imposter syndrome. They're like, what? What is that? So then I talk them through, and they're like, oh my god, I do. I'm like, you have the skills, and it always surprises me because like especially the higher ranking folks, like the senior enlisted and senior officers, when they feel like they can't do something, I'm like, brother, sis, I've been there. Trust me, you got the goods. Now we just got to translate it.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's about that time, Keith. These things go
Yeah,
quick, man.
I know they do. And I love this episode. And so I'm actually going to ask a two-part question to kind of maybe close this out. So, because you mentioned like, you started like 6 months out from your separation date. And like my buddy Gunner, who pivoted into cyber, took him 10 months, so there's differing timelines and that sort of thing. So just big picture, high level overview. If somebody were to want to reach out to you and they're still in uniform, how soon should they reach out to you prior to their separation to set themselves up for the most success? And then with that, how do they actually get in touch with you?
I've had people who are 1 year out and 2 year out reach out to me, and I, send them all the resources that I have available. That some are free. I just give them like links to nonprofit organizations like Hire Heroes, O2O, ACP, all these programs that are out there to get them started in doing their own research as well. And I give them some transition advice as well, like create a transition folder, binder, digital, physical, whatever. I created one. It was great. I took it with me where I went. Every time I had appointments, I had it with me just in case I needed a copy of my orders, which I did a few times. Um, but yeah, they can reach out to me via LinkedIn. They can message me, book a time on my calendar. It's on my profile. They want to just do like a quick consultation because I do have like 30-minute slots, and then I have the hour and 2 hour ones. Just depends on what they need. If they just want to talk, I just recommend doing a consultation. That's like 30 minutes. But sometimes they have a lot of questions, so I do go over the time. So I do this all the time because people will ask me more questions. I want to make sure that they're comfortable. But they can reach out to me via email afterwards or DM me, which a lot of people do. They'll still message me. So I still keep in touch with a lot of my clients that are now part of my network, and some of them have become my friends.
Nice.
So it's great. It's great because like I'm not one and done. Like, yeah, I work with you, but I don't forget about you. I want to know about your success stories. I want to know um, if you landed that job that you were seeking. And it varies for everybody. Sometimes they can get a job within a week after working with me. Sometimes it takes them 2 months, sometimes 3 months. It just depends. Also the industry, location, and their salary expectation. That's a big one too. Salary expectation. You need to know what these roles pay before you decide, I want to go do cyber as, entry level, or I want to go do IT, or I want to go do project management. And I have a lot of people tell me, I want to make $150,000. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? I don't know, but I want to get paid $150,000. So you have to manage expectations. I always tell people to go to sites like payscale.com, salary.com, and also the Bureau of Labor. Go to that website and do a search for the roles you're seeking and see how much they pay nationwide, what the median is, and figure out if that's what you really want to do. And also breaks it down and tells you what experience you need, education, certifications, training. It tells you what you need. So a lot of the research starts with the candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing insight. So yeah, I mean, I've always said find a mentor, find 10, make sure at least one of them's an accountability mentor. And it sounds like, Marisol, you are right up that alley for folks that might be interested in your services. So yeah, no, build a board. I always say build a board of advisors to assist you along your way. So that's amazing stuff. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or this evening. Sorry, Marisol. Yeah, it's been a long day. So yeah. But as I said, on behalf of the Vet S.O.S family and Marisol, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Please make sure that you follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube and all your favorite podcast platforms. And remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the Vet S.O.S lifeline.